To order. Mary Jo, can you please call the roll?
Mary Bell-Beard.
Here.
Kevin Tansky.
Here.
Barb Politsky.
Here.
Ron Van Kirk.
Here.
Tony DeMarco.
Here.
Debbie Tomusco. Here. Kathy Pucci.
Here.
Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
To start off this evening, we do need to approve some minutes dated October the 11th, 2016. Can I have a motion for approval, please?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
To approve, Mary Bell-Beard.
Yes.
She absent.
No, isn't it the 26th?
This is for the 11th, the last meeting.
Abstain.
Thank you. Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Barb Politsky.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Tony DeMarco.
Yes.
Debbie Tomusco.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
To start off this evening, we have an award. It's going to be presented from the Cuyahoga County Emergency Management Agency, and so I'll have those gentlemen come if you'd like to come present your award this time.
My name is Mark Christie.
Could you step over the mic, please? Thank you.
My name is Mark Christie, and I'm the manager of the Office of Emergency Management for Cuyahoga County. And we're here tonight to present the City of Brooklyn with a plaque basically commemorating the fact that they went above and beyond emergency planning for emergency response and recovery activities in the city. Going through the Ready Certified program, which is what it's called, it's a standards-based program, and I'll let Mac talk a bit more about it from our office. But it's a rigorous standards-based program that basically helps local communities build robust public safety capabilities. So over the course of 2 years, perhaps, our office has worked with Chief Zemek from the fire department here to go through this program. And as of tonight, Brooklyn is officially considered Ready Certified and becomes one of a very exclusive club in Cuyahoga County. There's only 14 or 13 other municipalities in Cuyahoga County that have successfully completed this program. So, like I said, it's an exclusive club. Brooklyn should be very proud. And I do want to recognize, too, Chief Zemek for his efforts within the program. Chief Zemek is not only within this program, but he's an asset to Cuyahoga County public safety efforts, regionally. It's definitely not surprising that Brooklyn is one of the first to complete this program, just with how forward-leaning Chief Zemek and, by extension, the City of Brooklyn are with their public safety efforts. So it's a very proud moment again for Brooklyn, and I'll let Mac talk a little bit about why this program is extensive and kind of underscore why it's an impressive feat.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. Mark pretty much hit the nail on the head about what the program is and what it's for. Some of the parts of the program, developing an emergency operation plan, which in and of itself takes months and months for anyone that has a background or knowledge of emergency management knows that, and it's very intensive and all-encompassing in terms of what it entails to do with emergency management. This is no small feat. People such as Chief Zemek have worked day in and day out on this, inclusive of their day-to-day operations. So I just want to give congratulations to Chief Zemek and the City of Brooklyn, and I'll read the plaque as it stands. Cuyahoga County recognizes the hard work and commitment that the above community has made to emergency preparedness and the safety and well-being of its citizens. It is with great honor that the community is declared Ready Certified. Congratulations.
I just want to also just thank Chief Zemek. He should be recognized with this. This is his plaque. He worked hard for this, so I just want to get a round of applause for all the work he's done.
Yeah, it's a pretty proud moment for Brooklyn, and it was a couple years, but I want to thank Mark. He stayed right by my side to kind of lead me on the leash as to you know what needed done for Brooklyn, and we just kept chiseling away until we got it all set. So So thanks, Mark. Matt, welcome aboard to county, and thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate that. All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being a part of our council meeting tonight. I will quickly go over the agenda for this evening. We are going to accept a donation for Thanksgiving baskets. We'll do some more details of that in a moment. We're going to accept a $500 recycling grant from the Solid Waste District. We're also going to authorize application for assistance to firefighters grant relating to regional dispatch. There are still 3 items held in abeyance. Ordinance 2015-77, it's establishing the full-time position of Economic Development Director in the City of Brooklyn. Resolution 2016-5, declaring City Council's intent to vacate a portion of Montgomery Place south of Manoa Avenue and requiring notice to be published and declaring emergency. And lastly is Ordinance 2016-32, establishing Chapter 1362, Certificate of Inspection at Point of Sale, and amending Section 1360.24. Regarding the Resolution 2016-5, we did get an update from our law director today, and that process is moving forward, but we're not ready to adopt this resolution at this time. From old business, we have Resolution 2016-10 is up for third reading and adoption, supporting the efforts of Utility Workers of America, UWUA, Local 270, to reinstate First Energy's healthcare cost sharing for active members and retirees. Resolution 2016-11 is on second reading, authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with the District Board of Health of Cuyahoga County for health services for the year 2017 for $46,016. Ordinance 2016-68 is up for third reading and adoption. We will need to amend this evening, but it's authorizing a purchase and service agreement between the City of Brooklyn and Bailey Communications for new voice over internet IP phone system and full service 5-year maintenance agreement in the amount of $174,0543. Ordinance 2016-70 is on second reading, is amending the annual appropriations. And Ordinance 2016-71 is on second reading, authorizing the mayor, City of Brooklyn, to pay an incentive to employees able to opt out of medical coverage under the city's medical plan. Ordinance 2016-73 is on second reading, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Software Solutions to provide an accounting and software system and upgrade for the finance and payroll departments. And then Ordinance 2016-75 is on second reading, authorizing the mayor to enter into a lease between the City of Brooklyn and Outfront Media to lease the property known as Medina Freeway property, City of Brooklyn, permanent parcel 431090005, for the purpose of installing and maintaining advertising signs. We do intend to pass this by emergency this evening. On first reading is Resolution 2016-13, approving the application of the City of Brooklyn to apply for Community Development Block Grant Funds for the Roadone Road Reconstruction Project. Then a partnering ordinance to that, a resolution to that is Resolution 2016-14 is also on first reading, approving the application of the City of Brooklyn to the Cuyahoga County Supplemental Grant Program for the Roadone Road Reconstruction Project. Ordinance 2016-77 is on first reading to provide for the creation and use of a Brooklyn Community Improvement Corporation Fund, a sub-fund of account number 102. Ordinance 2016-78 is on first reading, authorizing the mayor to enter an agreement with the Brooklyn Community Investment Corporation and Geist Companies for a development and planning study relating to the City Center project in the amount of $50,000. Ordinance 2016-79, hope to pass by emergency this evening, is authorizing a temporary moratorium not to exceed 120 days on the acceptance or processing of any permits for the activation or installation of any system, structures, equipment, or devices for the operation of small cells or nodes for communication purposes within the City of Brooklyn and declaring an emergency. Ordinance 2016-80, also hope to pass by emergency this evening, is authorizing the mayor to enter an agreement with Civil and Environmental Consultants Incorporated to provide additional services for a sanitary landfill in the amount of $26,000. And lastly, we hope to pass by emergency as well as Ordinance 2016-81, authorizing the C.W. Courtney Company to perform preliminary engineering services related to the Roadone Road Reconstruction Project. We'll now proceed with our council meeting. At this time, we'll have the public session. If anyone in the audience has anything to say for the good and welfare of the City of Brooklyn, please step forward, state your name, address, and you'll be recognized. Please remember to keep your comments to 5 minutes or fewer.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Erickson, the Vice President of the Utility Workers Union of America, Local 270. My address is 61 East 214th Street, Euclid, Ohio, 44123. I'm urging council to be the latest to pass a resolution supporting the UWUA Local 270. Local 270 represents the transmission, distribution, and generation workers of the illuminating company, a part of First Energy. Our members generate the power and send it through the lines to light up your homes and your businesses, and we've been doing that since 1943. In that time, the union has successfully negotiated health care for our retired members for over 6 decades. Over those 6 decades, people have retired with the security of knowing that as they age, the cost of their medical coverage will be shared with the company they dedicated their working lives to. Sadly, First Energy no longer feels any obligation to share in that cost, calling it a business decision. They feel no need to negotiate across the table for our retired members. In recent negotiations, they had little interest in countering any of the 14 proposals the union came at them with. They've already come to the union, and while they acknowledge their legal need to negotiate for the retirees, they have already told us that this group will lose any health care subsidy effective April of 2017. And the company, when approached, had no interest in discussing this issue with the president or the members of this council. Today's business environment is one of quick profits and little concern for folks whose labor makes those profits. Utility workers are not the only ones facing those cuts. However, utility work is inherently dangerous work, where workers are exposed to known human carcinogens. Utility workers' exposure to asbestos, inorganic arsenic, chromium, creosote, and many other cancer-causing agents is well documented. Cancer, as well as many other physical problems that develop from the wear and tear of physical labor, often don't appear during an employee's working years. They often appear after they're retired. Any of these physical problems can be financially devastating to a retiree and their family. With that background, I can tell you this. Recently, there was a viewing at a funeral home for one of our retired members. He retired in 2014, and shortly after that, he was diagnosed with multiple forms of cancer. He battled for over 2 years and eventually lost his fight. As sad as this is, it would be much worse if his sickness had also led to financial ruin due to the high cost of the treatment. See, the union brother, who we recently lost, was still receiving his shared cost medical benefits. If First Energy has their way, future retirees who fall victim to cancer won't have that security. And not only will their family have to deal with the loss, but they could be left with an unmanageable amount of debt, depending on what sort of medical coverage they can find and what they can afford. Cuts to retiree benefits are commonplace these days, but that doesn't make them right. I urge this council, please be the latest to support Local 270's retired people. The men and women who have generated the power and kept the lights on for decades. Please join North Royalton, Garfield Heights, Newburgh Heights, and the Cuyahoga County Council in supporting the retirees, because these are not just a business decision. These benefits are about real people and security in their retired years. Thank you.
Chris? Anyone else?
Don Stopa, 4190 Abbeywood Drive, Brooklyn. What do we have to do as a city to attract well-funded, well-financed, I should say, developers who can finally build that assisted living complex that we've been told that we're going to get? We've had numerous people telling us that all they need is the funding. Then when we have the funding, they have some other excuse. When are we finally going to get somebody that will build this project, if at all possible? I'm seeing all of our neighbors, our neighboring cities and suburbs, they're getting these done all the time. So evidently, something is wrong with the city of Brooklyn that we're not being able to fund a developer to do this. The city of Parma has built 3 or 4 new ones, one of which has been completed and is more than half filled already. What is wrong with the city of Brooklyn? Why can't we get it done?
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, gentlemen. We'll now move on with reports of committees, commissions, and boards. This evening, we begin with Councilwoman Pucci on the Finance Committee.
Thank you. Good evening. The Finance Committee started early this evening at 6 o'clock. We had a presentation on a joint application grant for assistance to firefighters funding with the other cities in the Parma Regional Dispatch. The total grant would be for $1.26 million with a 10% match, which would be divided by each fire station. So in our regional dispatch service, there are 9 stations, so this is just under $14,000 per fire station. The monies would be for a new alerting system in each station, and I want to thank Chief Zemek. We had 2 representatives from the Parma Fire Department who led the presentation, and they did say that our Chief Zemek was the one that really got the ball rolling on this. And the Finance Committee did recommend that we authorize the application this evening for that grant. The Finance Committee also recommended Council accept the $500 recycling grant from the Solid Waste District, the Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District. And Resolution 2016-8, which relates to Montgomery Place south of Manoa, we did receive an update from Mr. Butler, our law director. It seems that a compromise has been reached with the parties. Still need a little bit more time to work out the details and draft the documents and facilitate a survey. So we're going to be holding that in abeyance also this evening. Under old business, I'm going to focus on basically what we're going to be passing this evening, or what's up for passage this evening, and then under new business, what's new to the agenda. Since we have a lengthy agenda, I'm not going to comment on the second reading legislation. Ordinance 2016-68, which will have to be amended. This authorizes the purchase and service agreement between the City of Brooklyn and Bailey Communications for our new phone system. The original price was $181,506.93. A couple meetings ago, Mr. DeMarco mentioned a suggestion to look at actually taking a good look at did we really need every telephone station to have a phone that had all the bells and whistles. They went back, reworked it, so we'll be saving about $11,000. The new figure is $170,405.43. I know there are some questions on the maintenance agreement. I guess we'll hash that out when it's up for passage on the agenda. Ordinance 2016-75, which will be passed by emergency measure this evening, authorizes the mayor to enter into the lease agreement between the City of Brooklyn and Outfront Media. This is the property known as the Medina Freeway property. So this is the city-owned property that is along the I-71 corridor. Our law director, Mr. Butler, is still working out the details, but we did receive a draft of the most current agreement, and there will be no substantive changes. Is that correct, Mr. Butler?
Mr. Chair, thank you. I wouldn't exactly say there would be no substantive changes, because substantive to me may mean something different than it would mean to you. The changes that I would propose to the document that I had forwarded to you would certainly be protective of the city, and they would not be substantive in the sense that they would not affect any financial aspects of the proposal. But whether or not a lawyer would label them as substantive, I think they would actually be substantive, they just wouldn't be detrimental to the city, that's all. And certainly not...
And they're not going to impact the financials?
They would not impact the financials at all.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Clarification. And we're looking at about $3.3 million over a 20-year period and with a $250,000 signing bonus and a potential for an estimated $976,000 in additional revenue for over the next 20 years. Under new business, we have Resolution 2016-13 approving the application of the City of Brooklyn to apply for a Community Development Block Grant for the Rodone Reconstruction Project. The total project is $2.6 million. The maximum amount of this grant is $150,000. Resolution 2016-14, which is a companion ordinance, is for the same project, but it's for a different grant. It's the Cuyahoga County Supplemental Grant Program, and that is up to a maximum of $50,000. Even though it is a very large project, any amount that we can get to help defray the cost is going to help us. We previously had applied for some issue 2 money, I think it was, and we were denied twice. So we're going to have to pay for this on our own. Ordinance 2016-77 to provide for the creation and use of a Brooklyn Community Improvement Corporation Fund. This is going to be a sub-fund of number 102. So under our general fund, we have a sub-fund for economic development, and under the Economic Development Fund, we're creating this new sub-fund for the Community Improvement Corporation. Now that we have a project that we're going to be undertaking, exploring the possibility of city center, this is going to allow for the appropriate disbursements of funds for the CIC, and this was also a suggestion of our auditor. Ordinance 2016-78, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Brooklyn Community Improvement Corporation and Geis Companies for a development and planning study relating to the city center project in the amount of $50,000. So the CIC put out a request for qualifications to developers. We received 2 responses. We had both of those developers, it was Geis and Weston, come in. We had a very lengthy meeting. Each of them had a presentation for us, and then we got an opportunity to ask questions. Went back to them afterwards for some further clarification, and after analyzing the 2 proposals, the CIC recommended that we go with Geis. Ordinance 2016-79 authorizes a temporary moratorium not to exceed 120 days on the acceptance or processing of any permits or the activation or installation of any systems, structures, equipment, or devices for the operation of small cells or nodes for communication purposes within the city of Brooklyn and declaring an emergency. Apparently, there are entities that are either putting devices either on utility poles or installing new poles in the public right-of-way to, the devices, I believe, are to enhance or strengthen the signal for Wi-Fi. I think that's it. So this is a new concept, and the cities were kind of caught a little bit off guard. So we want to put a moratorium in place until we have a chance to look at how to regulate this. And that'll be passed by emergency measure this evening. Ordinance 2016-80, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with civil and environmental consultants to provide additional services for the sanitary landfill in the amount of $26,000. We did apply for a variance to one of the mandates from the EPA, and in order to move forward with this process, it's going to cost us a little bit of additional funds for our consultant to present our position and also provide more analysis. Ordinance 2016-81, authorizing the C.W. Courtney Company to perform preliminary engineering services relating to the Rodone Road reconstruction project, $71,395. Our finance director also shared some more current up-to-date information on our financial outlook. We did have a work session after our last council meeting, very preliminary overview, looking at our financial projections moving forward with the loss of American Greetings, and also how the potential passage of the City of Cleveland's increase in the income tax will also impact our income tax collections, because right now anyone who works in the City of Cleveland lives in the City of Brooklyn. They pay their 2% to the City of Cleveland, and we give 100% credit for that, but then they still owe that 0.5% to the City of Brooklyn. If Cleveland raises their income tax to the 2.5%, going along with our 100% credit, we're going to lose that revenue from our residents. The most current information he received from Rita is that we would be looking at potentially a $2.6 million deficit if we kept our spending flat with what we did in 2016. We're now currently trying to schedule a meeting to review the assessment on our buildings we had done, which is going to lay the groundwork for some of our capital improvement expenditures over the next few years. And we will also have a temporary budget on the agenda for our next council meeting, and we do anticipate conducting some budget meetings for 2017 in 2016. And that completes my lengthy report. Thank you.
Next up is Public Safety and Environmental Committee, and that is Councilwoman Tomusko.
Good evening. We had a safety meeting on Public Safety and Environmental Committee on October 12th, and a couple of items that we discussed. We had a presentation by Mr. Butler, our law director, about the new marijuana law, and I will attempt to explain what you said, and just please correct me if I see anything wrong, or don't necessarily. This marijuana law is really interesting. It was enacted in Ohio September 8th of 2016, and the state has until September of 2018 to actually implement it and have a full implementation plan. The way it's written is the medical marijuana is allowed for, quote, qualifying diagnoses. So there are only certain diseases and certain diagnoses that the medical marijuana is allowed for by this law. In addition, it can only be taken in by a couple of methods: vaporization, edibles. You can't smoke it. So nobody's going to be getting a, marijuana cigarette to smoke because they have headaches. That's not what's happening with this law. It's being regulated within the state by the State Board of Pharmacy and the Department of Commerce. Everybody involved in this, whether involved in the sale of it, the making of, the brownies or whatever that might be sold, will have to be licensed by the state. And the doctors who have the opportunity to recommend treatment, and I'll get into that in a little more detail, they have to be registered by the state as well. The interesting thing is, this is a new law in the state of Ohio. From a federal government standpoint, they still outlaw marijuana as a Class 1 drug. And so that doctors are licensed by the Federal Drug Enforcement Agency, so doctors are not allowed to write prescriptions for medical marijuana. So the wording that's being used is the doctors have to recommend treatment, but they cannot write prescriptions. So this is all being worked out. The governor has appointed some very good people to a committee that is investigating this. Pharmacy people, law enforcement people, drug enforcement people, commerce people, and they're trying to work through this before the September 2018 need to implement it. The one bright spot that we have is basically within the law, the city can take any measure that it wants to regulate the industry within their city boundaries. So if we decide, okay, let's say we're going to let somebody have an office where they're recommending treatment, we can say that can't be within X feet of a school, or it can't be on, within X feet of a church. So we can do that. We can choose not to allow people to come into the city and, again, not prescribe, recommend treatment. But it also has incredible upside potential if a lot of cities are deciding not to allow this. We could tax it however we might choose to tax it. So I think it deserves an honest look by the council and by the city of Brooklyn. We did go ahead and do a moratorium at the beginning of the year to give us time to sort this out, and I suspect we will extend that just because, again, the group that's working for the governor have until September of 2018 to actually put forward an implementation plan, and whatever we do has to be in line with what the state is allowing. So we're not going to be able to do something until the state comes through with their regulations. Was that fairly accurate? Oh, you did a good job teaching us. Very good. All right, second thing. Then we had a fairly lengthy discussion about parking. I never realized parking could be so controversial until we had a meeting about parking. Just a couple things about parking on the street. We did get on the issue about truck parking. This was a fairly brief discussion, but the way that the law reads is if a truck is over 4,000 pounds, it's allowed to be on the street only for making deliveries. So if you're getting a furniture or concrete done at your house, then a truck over 4,000 pounds is allowed to be on the street, but only for delivery. If it's over 6,000 pounds and or over 8 feet in height and or 20 feet in length, that truck needs to be in your driveway, on a concrete pad, in the rear of your home, or in a garage. You're not allowed to park it just kind of right out in your driveway, and you're definitely not allowed to park it in the street. Now, a couple years ago, originally it was 4,000 pounds. It was changed to 6,000 pounds because the point is, Brooklyn we have a lot of people that are skilled tradespeople. We have a lot of hardworking people in Brooklyn, and we did not want to come up with parking rules that were going to preclude some guy who's a plumber from parking his van in his driveway. What we're trying to do is prevent these big, heavy trucks and hideous looking things from being, right out on the street. So that was a fairly reasonable discussion. And we've just kind of asked the police to keep an eye, how much that this really is an issue or becomes an issue. The second thing that we had a fairly lengthy discussion about was the idea of the snow ban. We have a snow ban in effect for parking during the winter months. So between November 1st and the end of March, from 2 a.m. to 7 p.m. during snow time, there's no parking on the street. That's the law. There's no parking on the street. And there's no parking after 2 inches or more snow. We had a fairly lengthy discussion because people were commenting that, between November 1st and March 31st, we have a lot of days where it doesn't snow. So why should I not be allowed to park on the street if it's not snowing? Or if there isn't any snow, and then we'll make sure we don't park when it is snowing, but we want to park when it isn't snowing. And the discussion, basically the way it came down was, look, we've got to have something reasonable for the police to enforce, and to have the police have to keep up with weather reports and things just kind of seem ridiculous from an enforcement policy. So we're going to keep the law the way it is. Although, obviously asking the police to use some discretion. If it's a sunny day and there's nothing, maybe you could give the person a break or just give them a warning. But basically the law is the law from a snow ban standpoint, and we didn't seem to have any thoughts on needing to change that. Finally, we got into a discussion because a couple of residents had complained about parking during trash pickup. So the day that your house is having trash pickup, the problem's been a lot of people have been parking on the street, and then the person brings their trash cans down to their lawn, and the trash pickup truck cannot, or the dump truck, the trash truck, you know what I mean, cannot get to the person's trash cans because there are cars parked in front of him. So Mr. Verba was there, and he said, his suggestion would be, let's just have no parking on the street during trash pickup day. And that is, some other cities have enacted that as a law. Lakewood has it as an example. But we're not doing that right now. That's something I'd like to get input from fellow council people on and additional input, because that would make things much simpler for the trash people. The other thing that was in the works quite a few years ago, and it was actually Mayor Gallagher who suggested it when she was a council person, and that was the idea of giving some of the service personnel the ability to write tickets, so that we're not constantly calling the police to say, hey, could you ticket this guy that's blocking, our ability to pick up trash? So the idea of giving service personnel the ability to write tickets, an ordinance started to be written a couple years ago, but it wasn't carried through on. So again, that's a kind of an open issue that we're willing, and again, I'd love to get some feedback from fellow council people and from citizens as well. So that's pretty much what we covered at the meeting. The next meeting, I do want to get this idea of taking a good hard look at the animal shelter. Again, just given the costs and the challenges that we have. So that's the end of that report. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Recreation Board, Councilman Tansky.
Thank you. The Brooklyn Recreation Center presents Frightening Friday Night Hollow Scream Skate on Friday, October 28th from 8 p.m. until 9:15 p.m. Free admission to current Brooklyn resident ID holders wearing a costume and donating a Thanksgiving-related canned good item for the City of Brooklyn Thanksgiving basket. Non-residents will be admitted for resident rates, $1 admission if wearing a costume and donating Thanksgiving-related canned good for the holiday basket. Other skaters not wearing a costume will be admitted for regular admission rates. Rates are as follows. Resident student admission $1, rental skate rental $1, non-resident student admission $3. Skate rental fees are still in effect for all skaters. Please remember, for your safety as well as others, any type of mask that restricts your vision while skating is prohibited. Costume accessories such as toy guns, knives, sickles, axes, and so forth will not be allowed at this session. Register for learn to skate classes at the Recreation Center during regular business hours. Winter session registration starts October 26th. For a full schedule, please visit the Rec Center. Registration fees for all classes, 8-week program are as follows. Resident $52, partnership $59, non-resident $67. These rates include $12 USFS fee, which is one-time charge for September 1st through August 31st, 2017. This fee is your registration into the Learn to Skate USA program and must be paid if you are not a member of a figure skating club. For more information, please contact the John M. Coyne Recreation Center, 216-351-5334. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Tansky. Next up is the Board of Zoning Appeals, Mr. Kolsar.
Thank you, Mr. Van Kirk. The Board of Zoning Appeals met on Thursday, October 20th, and heard a request from Sean McGrath to amend approval of the previous docket 12-2015-01 for an 180 square foot steel shipping container shed at 10401 Bidoff Road. This request was denied by the board. Heard a request from B Next Awning and Graphics for an additional freestanding sign for St. Elias Church at 8023 Memphis Avenue. This was approved. Request from Henry Frederick for a 22-inch height variance for a fence in a side yard adjacent and parallel to the neighbor's home at 4784 Forest Edge was denied by the board. A request from Bert Edwards of Intermodal 1 for parking setbacks variance, front setback of 12'6", east side setback of 10 feet, west side setback distance of 8'6" at 8215 Clinton Road. This was approved, along with another request by Mr. Edwards for 22.5% minimum lawn and landscape area variance. The last request was from Andrew Clark for a 36 square foot variance to the maximum size for another steel shipping container shed at 10407 Bidoff Road. This application was withdrawn by the owner due to the denial of his neighbor's request. And that'll conclude my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Colasar. Next up is Planning Commission, Mrs. Pucci.
Thank you. The next Planning Commission meeting is Thursday, November 3rd at 6 p.m. in the Brooklyn City Hall Conference Room. Under old business, there's a request from Osborne Engineering for site plan approval for vehicle repair and sales at 11300 Brook Park Road, permanent parcels number 433-16005, 433-16013, and 433-16014. Under new business, a request from Lamar Advertising to change a billboard to a digital display located along Interstate 71 on permanent parcel 431-07002. A request from Lamar Advertising to change a billboard to a digital display located along Interstate 71 on permanent parcel 431-08006. A request from Outfront Media LLC to relocate 3 billboards and also change 2 of them to digital display located along Interstate 71 on permanent parcel 431-09005. All individuals may attend the City of Brooklyn Planning Commission meeting and have the right to comment either in person at the meeting or in writing to City of Brooklyn Planning Commission, 7619 Memphis Avenue, Brooklyn, Ohio, 44144. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Pucci. Now we'll move on to reports of council. This evening we begin Mrs. Belbier.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to extend my condolences once again to Chief Melky on the loss of his mother. No matter what age you are, the loss of a mother does create a vacuum in your heart, and it's sometimes so difficult to deal with. I also had the opportunity to meet Chief Melky's sons at the funeral parlor, and you have a lot to be proud of. They're very handsome. They look like they're very talented young men, so it was nice to meet them. Secondly, I'd like to thank Debbie Tomushko for all her fine work that she did coordinating the Brooklyn Hall of Fame, the banquet that was held last week. It was so nice to see so many talented and successful people that emerged from our little city, Brooklyn, from actresses to phenomenal business owners to musicians. It really was an amazing thing, and Brooklyn has a lot to be proud of, the high school. Well, as we all know, Veterans Day is approaching. On November 11th, here in our own special city, the fire department is going to be making a pancake breakfast for all Brooklyn residents that are veterans. So if you get a chance, please stop by there and try out their pancakes. Let's see if it's as good as their chili. Also in conjunction with the Veterans Day, and this is kind of like off the record, in Westlake, there's a church by the name of St. Ladislaus, and they are going to be celebrating Mass for all deceased war veterans. So everyone is invited to come out there on there's 1:30 Mass, and it's going to be held in November on the 13th. So if you'd like to go there and partake in it, it will fulfill part of your obligation for Mass also. And Father Prescura, who was honored a few years ago as an Army chaplain, he was during the Vietnam era, he will be celebrating Mass. This Thursday at our own Brooklyn Senior Center, they'll be having an Oktoberfest. And they'll not only be having a pork dinner, but they'll also be having music. And it doesn't get any better than that. So if you get a chance, please come on down to our Brooklyn Senior Center. Karen does a great job there. This past weekend, I inherited 3 dogs, my daughter's dogs, when she comes to visit. It's 2 border collies and a dachshund. What am I going to do with them? I decided to take them down to our beautiful, now that we're allowed dogs in the park, down to our park. Well, I just want to compliment our park system. It's just beautiful with the leaves gently changing, and it was like just down by the creek. I can't say how beautiful it was. It was just amazing. So if you get a chance, before it gets too bad, take a walk in our park. We have a lot to be proud of. It's absolutely fabulous. As we all know, the legalization of marijuana has been happening in various states throughout our country. Several states have legalized its smoking for recreational purposes and many more for medicinal purposes. Our own state has legalized it for medicinal purposes. Like many of you, I have had great doubts about legalizing these mind-altering substances, even though in Ohio it's solely for medicinal purposes at this time. This entails consumption, of course, and not smoking. But I had an occasion recently to hear firsthand about its consumption. Simply because the business I'm in, I do get an awful lot of visitors from out of town who come to the Cleveland Clinic for to see their doctors for surgeries, and many times, and I'm lucky, they come by my place to have lunch. So I did talk to a couple. It was a young girl and a man. They were both teachers, and they lived out of state, and they kind of gave me the first hand about the use of the medical use, in the form of a medical use for the marijuana. She was a young lady. She was suffering and suffering. She makes a trip to the Cleveland Clinic once a month, and it's very costly because they have to spend a weekend there. She is a former probation officer, so is her husband, so their insurances and taking time off. I felt very, very bad, but she's suffering from a tremendous brain tumor and all kind of other issues. And she told me that one of the things that really helps her is the medicinal marijuana. And I didn't know anything about it, and I asked, well, how do you use it? They say they extract certain elements from the plant, and then she does consume that. So I think, you know, in the past, I didn't vote for it, but I'm starting to rethink about it. We may have to start rethinking about this, because it does serve some purpose. For some people, they just swear by it. And this poor girl, they're legitimate. You could tell they're strictly legitimate. And it really, really does help her. So that pretty much concludes my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Bellbeer. Next up is Mr. Tansky.
Thank you. Again, I want to offer my condolences on the loss of Chief Melky's mother. Resolution 2016-10, supporting the efforts of utility workers of America Local 270 to reinstate First Energy's healthcare cost sharing for active members and retirees. First Energy's annual revenue is greater than $15 billion, yet they are still seeking massive cuts to the retiree healthcare. In addition, they are also looking to raise the electricity rates for all the hardworking residents right here in your own community and across northern Ohio. No retiree after many years of service should be without health care. I would ask all members of City Council to vote in favor of this resolution and protect working Americans and retiree rights to their health care. Also, I missed something in my rec report. The next Recreation Board meeting will be held on Monday, November 21st at the Rec Center in the meeting room at 7 p.m. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. Next up is Mrs. Blitzky.
Thank you, Mr. Van Kirk. I would also like to offer my condolences to Police Chief Milky and his family. But since there are no words to describe the untimely loss of a mother and a wife, I'll just say I'll pray to God and ask Him to give you the strength you're going to need in the next couple of months. I received a newsletter from the Cuyahoga Soil and Water Conservation District asking for help with the monarch butterfly conservation effort. Each fall, they make an amazing trip from Canada to Mexico and from Mexico to Canada in the spring. The migration route is right through our midst. They lay their eggs on milkweed, and that is all the larvae eat. The Ohio Pollinator Habitat Initiative and the Ohio Soil and Water Conservation Districts have partnered together in the annual milkweed pod collection. This information came to me a little late, so it is from September 1st to October 30th, but you do have a few days. If you have milkweed seeds to donate, put them in a plastic bag, label them with the date, time, and the county where you gathered them. You can drop them off at 6100 Canal Road in Valley View from 8:30 to 4:30. Bins are also available after hours. Make sure the pods you select are brown and dry and not moldy. I was at a meeting recently and was given a pocket-sized book of the U.S. Constitution and fascinating facts about it. You can get a copy from Oak Hill Publishing Company, Post Office Box 6473, Naperville, Illinois, 60567, or at 1-800-877-6661. The cost is $3.95. The Constitution was signed September 17, 1787, and the first line says, "We the people." You can read the rest. Declaration of Independence was signed on July 4th, 1776, and it says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." You can also read the rest. But I'd like to quote from page 63 of the book, just some little excerpts that different famous people made about this. And this is John Adams sending it to Thomas Jefferson in May of 21. And this is what he said: "A free government is a complicated piece of machinery, the nice and exact adjustment whose springs, wheels, and weights is not yet well comprehended by the artists of the age, and still less by the people." From Abraham Lincoln, "Don't interfere with anything in the Constitution. That must be maintained, for it is the only safeguard of our liberties." And from someone named G. Norman Colley, who I don't know who he is, he says, "In free countries, every man is entitled to express his opinion, and every other man is entitled not to listen." With that, my comment is, and my point, get out and vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Splitsky. Next up is Mr. DeMarco.
Chief, I'd like to offer my personal condolences to you and your family. I'd also like to offer my condolences to the Egan family on the passing of Joe Egan, he was a hell of a guy. You know, he was a fanatical sports fan, and it's unfortunate he's not going to be around to witness firsthand the Indians winning the World Series this year. So again, I've been friends with Egan's family for a long time, 30 years probably, and I know he'll be missed by the family. And finally, I would also like to congratulate Deb Tomusko on being involved with the Hall of Fame committee for Brooklyn High School. I attended the dinner, and it was very well attended. You did a great job. The entries into the Hall of Fame it was kind of a personal, enjoyable night for me. I found out, actually, I didn't know till that evening, that one of the people that went in the Hall of Fame was my economics professor when I was completing my master's at Ball & Wallace. Our first state champion wrestler, I used to be his water boy. Maria Jacobs, who went in, I was in the show choir with. And finally, someone who I still, things that I learned back when I was 14 and 15 years old, and he was my wrestling coach, I still incorporated in my daily activities. Mr. Drago, who is one of the most respected wrestling coaches in the state of Ohio. So it was a great night, and for a small little school and for some square mile city, it's amazing to see the talent that's come out of there. So congrats to all of the inductees, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Marco. Next up is Mr. Musko.
I'm also going to echo sympathy to Chief Milkey. Unfortunately, I was out of town and was not able to attend the services or personally offer my condolences. I know how difficult it is. I still miss my mom every day. We're extremely close, but as a Christian, you know that she's in a better place. I also want to congratulate and recognize myself, Chief Zemek. He's becoming rapidly my hero, not only for his work from the County Emergency Management Association, but he just keeps these grants coming and coming. And I just love it because there are so many grants out there and he keeps applying for them, so he's becoming my personal hero. I appreciate the comments on the Brooklyn Hall of Fame. This will be the last time that I bring it up since the dinner's over and done. But it was an exceptional evening. It's very nice, very good people we inducted. If you turn on the TV tonight, in the rolling credits will be one of our inductees. As an art director, we had a singer, we had an actor, we had an economist. It was very well attended. The people that came appreciated the recognition. But what I wanted to point out that for me was the most significant, and it really moved all of the inductees, is during the day, we make a point of having an assembly with the students for an hour at least, to give each inductee an opportunity to not only tell their story, but give advice to the students. And it's always a little tenuous, you know, because our kids nowadays, they're into the video game attention span and you know, on their cell phones. You could have heard a pin drop in this auditorium. We were so happy. The kids were absolutely transfixed on what these people were saying. They were taking notes, they applauded, they stayed around afterwards to ask questions. So that really was one of the great accomplishments of the Hall of Fame, is the ability to inspire current kids that we have now to go ahead and live their dream and go for it, because people from little old Brooklyn can go on to do very great things. I will just comment that we constantly take applications for the Hall of Fame. We only do the dinner about every 3 to 4 years because there's only about 5 of us that volunteer to do this, so we try to do it every couple of years. And I just have to say one thing. This isn't, it's off the topic, but we constantly get asked, why isn't Ron Zutti in the Hall of Fame? Ron Zutti is the most beloved, well, one of the most beloved teachers at Brooklyn High School. I had him, I adore him. He sat next to me during the dinner. The reason Ron Zutti is not in the Hall of Fame is not some conspiracy plot. It's because he's asked not to be. He has requested that he tends to be a little more of a shy, quiet person. He's dynamic in front of the classroom, but he just is not interested in the recognition. He appreciates it. He comes to the dinner all the time, but he's asked not to be recognized. A couple people wanted to go ahead and induct him anyway, but I fought very strongly against it. I feel that we need to respect his wishes. So all the people that want Ron Zutti in the Hall of Fame, we do too, but we're respecting Ron's wishes and we haven't inducted him. I want to comment also, we did have our safety meeting, and I reported on that earlier. One of the things I want to say is we have committee meetings, and as we get feedback from people, we will listen to you, we will respect your opinion, we will hear you out, we want to hear what you think, we want to hear what you say, but you're not always going to get the changes that you want in law. The thing that people need to recognize, again, is we'll respect your opinion, but we're here to represent a city of over 10,000 people. So if one person comes to a meeting and feels very strongly about a topic, we'll certainly take it in, we'll certainly respect their opinion, we'll discuss it, but we're not necessarily going to change a law because one person has come and been very adamant about it. So just wanted to throw that out there. And last but not least, and probably more important, is go Tribe. I think they're going to freeze tomorrow night, but God, the Cubs, can it get any better than that? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Tomasco. Next up is Mrs. Pucci.
Thank you. I too would like to offer my condolences to Chief Milkey on the passing of his mother. You and your entire family are in my thoughts and prayers. I know how difficult it is to lose a parent. And I just have nice memories of your mom. She worked in the bank that we always went to for many years, and she was always so cheerful and so helpful. And I think always just tried to make everybody's day a little brighter. So I know how much she'll be missed. And also my condolences to the Egan family. I too have known the Egans for a long time, and I know how much he's going to be missed by his wife Sue and his whole family. Finally, I'm going to be a little redundant here, but I do also want to recognize Ms. Tomasco and the Hall of Fame Committee. I too attended. I've been to several of them over the years, and it's always such a wonderful night. And again, you know, the talent that comes out of a community as small as ours is something we can all be proud of. And I agree with what Ms. Tomasco said. The best part of it is when the Hall of Fame inductees go to the assembly. I think that's the whole point, to inspire our current students and to set an example and be role models for them. I have had the pleasure of attending a couple of the assemblies in the past, and I think that's by far the most important part of the whole process. So keep up the good work with your committee. I would like to thank Director Butler for sending the PowerPoint presentation on the presentation that he gave on the medical marijuana. I had to work that evening. I wasn't able to attend, but thank you. That was very helpful. And I would like to ask you to please make sure we stay on track of our moratorium. It sounds like this is going to be a very lengthy process as the state goes through and makes all these decisions. So I just want to make sure we're tracking that, because it sounds like we are going to have to extend the moratorium. And also, I just want to reiterate something I mentioned at the last meeting, and that is that the committee that has been formed, they have been pretty vocal that they do want to hear from people, whether it's residents, which would include, people, that need the medicinal marijuana, mayors, councils. They're very interested in hearing what the questions and concerns are, so that they can adequately make sure all these aspects are addressed, because as other people mentioned, this is a pretty complicated venture. Let's see. Also, congratulations to Chief Zemek for the Ready Certified designation by the county, and I want to thank you for your efforts. Brooklyn has a very long history of being a leader in safety initiatives, so keep up the good work, Chief. We appreciate your efforts. Mr. Stopa, on the assisted living. First of all, because you've been attending meetings for a long time, this has literally been going on for 20 years. And unfortunately, it's at this point out of the control of the city, although I keep pestering Mr. Udris on this to keep checking on it. The problem is that property is under the control, basically the owner has a stranglehold on that property. There was a time several years ago where it was going into foreclosure, and we thought we might have an opportunity there because this particular owner has not been able to pull the funding together. Every time it looks like he has it, it never comes to fruition. The city has bent over backwards on many, many occasions. The Economic Development Committee and Council actually even awarded them a community reinvestment area grant so that they would have some abatement on the property taxes on the improvement. I know that Mr. Udris is watching very carefully what's going on with it now to see if there would be an opportunity in the near future. Basically, it looks like it may be going into foreclosure again, but this particular property owner has a stranglehold on this property, and he is determined to do everything he can to hang on to it, even though he has not been able to bring this project to fruition. There's a lot of people who are frustrated by this, including me. I've sat in on countless number of meetings. We've gone through periods where the city has basically jumped through hoops to try and make this happen. And at the end of the day, we don't own the property, and this property owner has been unwilling to let somebody else come in for this development. So I literally ask Mr. Udris every few weeks to, for an update, and, if there is an opportunity, we're going to be ready to try and make something happen there. And finally, I would like to encourage everyone to please vote. Election Day is November 8th. You can vote by mail, so there's really no excuse not to vote. There is one ballot issue that impacts Brooklyn that is on the ballot, and that is issue 119 for Polaris. We are part of the Polaris Joint Vocational District. Per capita, we have the highest participation rate with our students in Polaris. It is a very small increase. I know that nobody is in favor of taxes going up, but this is something that has really had such a positive impact on so many students in our community. It's a good thing, so I would encourage people to please support that. And that does complete my report. Thank you. Oh, and go Tribe tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Pucci. I'm going to forgo some of the things I was going to say tonight just for the sake of time. But as Mrs. Pucci did mention, I print out several sample ballots, and I've placed them out on the desk out here for folks if you'd like to grab them or stop by City Hall and get them. This is a presidential election, so obviously voter turnout is naturally going to be higher, but there are a ton of other down ballot issues that are on the ballot that need to be voted on. We're voting for a U.S. Senator, a U.S. House, a state rep, a prosecuting attorney, our State Board of Education here in District 11, 3 Supreme Court justices here in Ohio, 4 appeals court, 19 Court of Common Pleas. Right, the ballot's 4 pages long. Right, so please make sure that before you go in to vote, yeah, it's one thing to say to go vote, but make sure that you're an informed voter when you go in. It's very important. And of course, the tax levy that Mrs. Pucci mentioned, it is an increase of 0.69 mils. So make sure not only do you go vote, but make sure you're an informed voter as well. I actually am working the polls on election day, so I mailed my ballot in today. I did have the privilege of attending Brooklyn's football game on the 14th. It's a young team. It just amazed me how young those guys are that were out there. I know that we've heard that before. They've taken their lumps this year on the field, but I was so impressed that they didn't quit. And it's very easy in a season whenever you're not getting the results that you want to do that. And of course, the halftime, the band was absolutely phenomenal. I actually felt bad for the opposing school's band because the Brooklyn band was just so good. And I would encourage you, I'm not even sure if there's another home game, one more home game this Friday. So I'd encourage you, if you haven't gone out to see the Hurricanes, make sure you get out there and support them this Friday. Also, Mr. Stopa as well, with the frustration I share, Mrs. Pucci's sentiment about that. We thought we had the last time that it was going to go through, and Mrs. Pucci warned me, because I'm fairly new to this compared to how long she's been. She goes, well, we'll see. That was her comment on that, and she ended up being right. So hopefully something will come to fruition. You're right, Parma has built a beautiful one right there out by the Old Parmatown Mall. It's just beautiful, and hopefully we'll be able to get that done here in Brooklyn as well. Also, Mr. Erickson, regarding this resolution, we've had some email dialogue back and forth on this issue, and obviously there's 2 sides to this. And I did want to hear from the other side. I did ask for the name and a contact number from First Energy. I haven't received that yet. And I do want to hear from the other side because, obviously we're hearing the union side. As I mentioned before, I would like to hear the other side before I support any resolution like this. And also, tomorrow is our mayor's birthday, so I did want to wish our mayor a happy birthday tomorrow. And that concludes my report. Mayor?
Well, thank you, Ron. Thanks for the birthday wishes. I'd like to thank Chris Erickson for coming tonight. He's come tirelessly to here, but I've seen him everywhere in the county. If I ever went back to a union job, I definitely would want you representing me. You're working hard for your coworkers. Although I don't have a vote tonight, you definitely have my support on this moving forward.
Thank you.
I have a construction notice from our Service Director, John Verba, on Tiedemann Road. Starting Friday, October 28th at 8 p.m. through Monday, October 31st at 6 a.m., the I-480 westbound exit ramp will be closed. They'll be replacing the existing pavement there, weather permitting, and the end is in sight to this project, only a couple more weeks. I know this has been a nightmare project, and I personally can't wait for it to be over with. Last week we had a wellness fair, our first annual wellness fair for the city of Brooklyn. I'd like to thank Joanne Haig and Joe Ludwig, 2 employees here who put it together. They used our wellness dollars through Medical Mutual, and they really put on a nice thing. They had over 14 vendors here. They had cholesterol testing, blood pressure testing, vision, hearing tests for all the employees. If they did those testings and got their numbers, they were entered into prizes for various things they spent with the wellness dollars. But we're really trying to focus on wellness here as healthcare costs continue to rise, and looking at those numbers, it's important for the employees to see that when we're looking at renewing our healthcare plans. And I think we had nothing but compliments from the employees. I think that they thought it was a terrific event. So I'd just like to thank Joanne and Jill for organizing that. One of the things on the ordinance or the agenda tonight is an ordinance for the voice over IP phones. This has been on the agenda for about a month and a half now, going back and forth on a few things. I just want to reiterate why we're moving to this way. Our phone system currently is very antiquated. We have problems with our phone system weekly, and going to this voice over phone system, we can eliminate some of the antiquated equipment like BANA circuits we pay for. This is a cost to the city of $54,720 annually, so we will eliminate that off our bill with AT&T, and then we'll be able to eliminate 2 of our 3 PRI lines, which is a savings of $13,431 annually. So these are just reoccurring costs we won't have to think about going forward. I'd like to thank Kevin Butler for putting together a great RFP for the billboards. Not only did he do that, he really made an effort to go out there and look to see what kind of the outdoor media is in the market right now, and I really think that's why we got an aggressive replies, because his work on that. So I just want to thank you, Mr. Butler, for doing that. I want to remind everyone that trick-or-treating is October 31st, starting at 6 p.m. We also have the Halloween house decorating contest. Judges will be going out on Sunday, October 30th around dusk, so if you have Halloween decorations, you have lights, make sure you turn them on. And lastly, Ron had mentioned this Friday's last home football game. It's their senior night. They went through the community, they received donations, and they're going to have a huge fireworks display, so if you're interested, go out there and support the Brooklyn seniors. They'll recognize everyone, not just the football players. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll now move on with the director's reports. This evening, we start with our rec manager, Ms. McGinty.
Good evening. The Recreation Center is now accepting credit cards. We are also starting online registration, and if you'd like to register for our Winter Learn to Skate, please go to www.activityreg.com. So it will be www.activityreg.com. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next up is our finance director, Mr. Schaefer.
Good evening. Ms. Pucci kind of recapped from the Finance Committee meeting that basically you have the second reading on the temporary appropriations tonight, and we're going to be moving forward with a temporary budget next meeting. It's going to look a lot like last year's temporary budget. And again, just to kind of go over the RETA projections for 2017, based on our work session, that was going to be lower to the tune of about $1 million in general fund revenue every year. I know during our work session, the deficit was projected to be $1.6 million. That would grow that to $2.6 million if municipal income tax stayed the same and expenditures stayed the same as well. So moving forward, we're really trying to be able to understand for the 2017 budget. The mayor, myself, all the directors would be meeting this week to see if there's any opportunity for reduction in expenditures in 2017. And obviously, once we have the AVG needs assessment, we'll be able to factor that into the capital improvement. So that completes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. Next up is Chief Zemek.
Thank you. Just want to remind the residents, and Councilwoman Valvera already did, on November 11th, the fire department will host the first ever breakfast for our resident veterans and active duty members. And it'll be from 9 a.m. to 12 at the fire station. And I wasn't planning on having pancakes, but I guess I'll add them to the menu now. So please, come on out. We'd like to honor our veterans and our active armed force duty members. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Next up is Chief Melky.
I just wanted to remind everybody, November 1st is the start of the winter parking ban, so don't leave your cars out overnight after that. And I wanted to thank the many people that have expressed their sympathy and shown kindness to my family over the last 2 weeks, especially the many friends that my family have here in this great community of Brooklyn, and the quality people that I work with here at City Hall and the police department. So again, my sincere, heartfelt thanks to all of you.
Thank you, Chief. Next up is Mr. Kolsar.
Thank you. I just want to give a little bit of an update. Back in May, we had council pass a couple of ordinances for the building department, one being foreclosure notifications. This is so that when banks file foreclosures on property owners, we would get notified by them. They pay a fee and give us all their information, so we can now start to identify these homes from the onset of a foreclosure. The second ordinance was for vacant property registrations. So a home that is vacant, under violation of some type, would also have to register that with the building department. Again, we have the ability to identify them, and with that, it's an escalating fee, so every year that this property sits vacant, that owner is charged a doubling fee for a single-family home starting at $200, and the next year would be $400 and $800 after that. So now that we've got this rolling, we've had so far 10 foreclosure notifications sent in, and we've got 16 vacant properties identified, and 7 of those properties have been registered with us. So, it seems to be working pretty well. And another just stat is at this point we have 245 rental dwelling licenses. This last year we had 235, so that seems to be something that's always going up, and something that we, as we go through these properties with our property maintenance program, end up finding more of. So that's all completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll now move on with our agenda for this evening. We do have two donations this evening. The city has accepted a donation in the amount of $800 from Triad Engineering, and that is for the Thanksgiving baskets that will be distributed here in the next month or so. We've been granted the award from the Cuyahoga County Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District. Award the city $500 for recycling banners and table skirts. There is no match for this, so this is just $500 for that purpose. So we need a motion to accept.
Move to accept.
Second.
To accept the grant, Mary Belbeer.
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Barb Politzky.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Tony DeMarco.
Yes.
Debbie Tomusko.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
We also need to authorize the application for the Assistance to Firefighters Grant related to Regional Dispatch. This is the grant that Mrs. Pucci discussed in her finance meeting, or her finance report, and this is for the new communication system for the city of Brooklyn. And it looks right now it's going to be at a cost of about $14,000. We won't know exactly until we get a solid number in.
Move to authorize the application for the Assistance to Firefighter Grant relating to Regional Dispatch.
Second.
To authorize, Mary Belbeer.
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Barb Politzky.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Tony DeMarco.
Yes.
Debbie Tomusko.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
All right, there were 3 items held in abeyance. I already read those at the beginning of the meeting. As far as old business, we have a resolution 2016-10 is up for third reading and adoption. This is supporting the efforts of Utility Workers of America, UWUA, Local 270, to reinstate First Energy's healthcare cost sharing for active members and retirees.
May I be recognized?
Yes, ma'am.
Just to be clear, I do support the concept of petitioning on behalf of retirees. As I mentioned at the last meeting, there are, in addition to the Utility Workers of America, there are, the steel workers, the auto workers, Teamsters. There are so many sectors of the economy where people who worked hard, did all the right things, and were told this is what you're going to get when you retire, and then either a combination of, or one or the other, a combination of your pension cut or your health care cuts. I think it's a big problem, and I support somebody trying to take a look at what the resolution to this is. But my concern is with the narrow focus, it targets one sector but not the others. And I know I brought up at the last meeting maybe the idea of considering a resolution that could encompass all the different sectors of the economy, and asking, for some, it's probably only Congress or the people who can actually do anything about it. So I don't know what my colleagues think. I mean, I know I got some feedback from 1 or 2 people that they were receptive to that. But my suggestion would be to hold off on this, and maybe over the next 2 weeks, maybe draft something that we can look at as an alternative at the next meeting that would encompass all the different sectors of very hardworking people, middle-class people who are also impacted by this. So I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts or comments.
No, I would agree with Ms. Pucci. The other point that I wanted to make is this isn't just happening to union personnel, represented personnel. This is happening to salaried people as well. General Motors did this to all of their salaried retiree people. I don't have any health care. They basically, with the advent of Obamacare or the healthcare recovery, you'll get low-cost healthcare act. A lot of companies have just said, hey, if the government's paying for this and I have to pay into this, then we're just going to pull away health care and no longer pay for it for our retirees. And it happened just like a swoosh across multiple industries and across not only, again, hourly personnel, but salary personnel as well. So I was going to abstain if we're going to put this forward tonight. I certainly appreciate it, but I think it has a very narrow focus. And I'm also not certain that it's the bailiwick of a city council to necessarily comment on something like this, but just wanted to share my thoughts on that.
Mr. Butler, would you mind giving your opinion on something like that? What are your thoughts on that? Sorry to put you on the spot.
I'm in the employ of you and the mayor to be put on the spot. However, and I don't mean to deflect, Mr. Chair, this really is a policy decision. Certainly, any legislation could be written or rewritten if council sees fit to do so, to encompass more scenarios that it could potentially cover. And I'd be pleased, as I always am, to help write legislation if that's the will of City Council. Thanks.
I just have a comment. There's been already other cities that tacked on board on this, and I believe also county council. Is that across the council that tacked on board, Mr. Harris?
They each signed a letter, each member of council signed a letter in support of Utility Workers Union Local 270.
Cuyahoga County Council's tacked on, multiple cities have tacked on, and I would be in favor to some sort of blanket that would cover healthcare across. And also, even if you wanted to add the pensions, that's fine, because there are pensions, a lot of Teamsters pensions in 8-9 years, they are going to be broke and basically gone. So retirees will not have a pension in the coming 8 to 9, 10 years. So if that's something we can get council to agree on, or majority to agree on, Mrs. Pucci, I'd be all for it. If you want to put this on hold, I'll make that motion to table it.
Okay, and then in the meantime, Mr. Butler, would you mind working on another resolution? Okay, thank you.
Just one more comment to echo what Ms. Tomusko said, and she hit the nail on the head. I said this in our last meeting, this is a nationwide problem with the Affordable Care Act, period. That's what the problem is. I mean, you're seeing, I read an article today that Ohio is not this, but some states are seeing 50% increases going the next year. Ohio, I think, is at 20% through this. It's unsustainable. And that was the reason why I would like to hear from someone from First Energy to find out what exactly, are they thinking in this? It's a terrible deal, and it's I'm not trying to get on a political soapbox here, but it's really, really handcuffed businesses in this country. The Affordable Care Act has, and is destroying this very thing that we're talking about. I mean, I feel bad for these people too. Ms. Tomusko doesn't have health insurance. My company, we don't have health insurance anymore. We had to drop out of the Affordable Care Act, and we now have a sharing system, MediShare. It's called a sharing system with other people. It's astronomical. We couldn't afford it. And so while I respect the fact that they're losing it, I feel bad for them. I don't think that a resolution by council is going to change that. I think as Ms. Pucci just mentioned, it's a Congress thing. It has to be changed in Congress. And I'll certainly look at something that is put forward by Mr. Butler. That's fine. But I just don't think it's going to solve anything. And I don't really think it's council's place to kind of say one way or the other what a company wants to do, especially when they're handcuffed. That's just my opinion.
Make a comment real quick. Sure. Ron, you mentioned, I believe Mr. Erickson himself has also contacted the company to try to get the company to come forward and explain their half, and the company has denied that. And I believe you reached out to, am I correct?
I have asked for a contact and a phone number. I have not received one.
Okay, Mr. Erickson, maybe you can, after the meeting, get him a contact and phone number, let him reach out. Probably get the same results, but at least try. But I'll motion the table.
Second.
To table, Mary Belvair,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Barb Politzky,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Tony DeMarco,
Yes.
Debbie Tomusko,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Resolution 2016-11 is on second reading, authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with the District Board of Health of Cuyahoga County for health services for the year 2017 for $46,016. Ordinance 2016-68, authorizing a purchase and service agreement between the City of Brooklyn and Bailey Communications Incorporated for a new voice-over IP phone system and full-service 5-year maintenance agreement in the amount of $174,0543. We do need to amend this ordinance. Underneath Section 1, the new wording is this, that the mayor is hereby authorized to enter into a purchase with a voice-over IP phone system for $100,405.43 and full-service maintenance for $17,500 per year for 4 additional years for a grand total of $174,0543 as described in Exhibit 1. And this is about $11,000 less than what the original ordinance was for. So I need a motion to amend.
Move to amend.
Second.
To amend, Mary Belvair,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Barb Politzky,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Tony DeMarco,
Yes.
Debbie Tomusko,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Need a motion to adopt.
May I be recognized?
Yes, ma'am.
I know there was some discussion in the Finance Committee, and Mr. DeMarco raised some questions on the cost of the maintenance agreement, and I know that we all recognize how antiquated our phone system is, and that we need a new phone system. I mean, this goes back to when Dennis Kennedy was here, shortly before he left. He started looking into options for a new phone system, and that was back in 2011. I'm willing to delay this. It's a lot of money, and if someone has questions or wants to hear maybe what some different options are relating to the maintenance agreement, I'm willing to delay it. I don't know how the rest of council feels, but I just thought I'd throw that out there.
May I be recognized?
Yes.
Since I'm the one that brought this up in finance, and I'll just apologize up front that I guess I brought it up last minute. This is important information that I think all of council should hear directly from the potential vendor that we would approve. And so I'd be for tabling this. I mean, we're talking about 3 weeks possibly for another vote if we could have a meeting between now, before the next council meeting, and get some of these questions answered. I'll be happy to put all this in an email to whoever I need to send it to tonight, my questions, and if the rest of council wants to send any questions you would have along with it. I agree with Ms. Pucci, we need a new phone system, there's no doubt about it. I'm questioning the maintenance agreement that is about $17,500 a year for 4 years after the initial year where there's no charge. So I'll make a motion that we table the ordinance.
I'll second that.
I have a quick comment.
Go ahead, Mr.
Question that I have, who are we going to bring in to answer these questions? Because if we bring in the same company, I already know the answers. So are we going to bring somebody in neutral that we can get these questions answered in a neutral way, nice way? I mean, that's, I think that's the only way you're going to get these questions answered in a way that is not acceptable and is not going to be favoring one way or the other. I don't want to walk in one of these meetings and it's just going to be all one-sided again. So that's going to be the question out there that I have.
Yeah, I mean, and I kind of feel the same way Mr. Tansky does. I mean, we had a meeting where the gentleman that we've entrusted with this process has recommended that we do this. And he answered all the questions that I had. I mean, if the majority of council want, we actually hold into abeyance, we don't want to table it, but we hold in abeyance. But if that's what council wants to do, I mean, that's certainly up to them. I'm in favor of voting for it tonight, but I'm only one person. So, do we have a motion? You said to hold we'll make it a hold in abeyance.
Want to withdraw that and say hold it in abeyance?
If you want to call it, I'll make a motion that we hold the ordinance in abeyance.
I'll second that, just to the next council meeting.
To hold in abeyance, Mary Bellbeer.
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Barb Politzky.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Tony DeMarco.
Yes.
Debbie Tomusko.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Okay, next up is ordinance 2016-70 is on second reading. Is the amended annual appropriations. Ordinance 2016-71 is on second reading, authorizing the mayor of the city of Brooklyn to pay an incentive to employees able to opt out of medical coverage under the city's medical plan. Ordinance 2016-73 is on second reading, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Software Solutions Incorporated to provide an accounting and software system and upgrade for the finance and payroll departments. Ordinance 2016-75 is on second reading, but we'd like to pass this by emergency this evening. It's authorizing the mayor to enter into a lease between the City of Brooklyn and Outfront Media Incorporated to lease the property known as Medina Freeway property, City of Brooklyn, permanent parcel 431090005, for the purpose of installing and maintaining advertising signs.
Introduced by all, suspend the rules.
Second.
To suspend the rules, Mary Bellbeer.
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Barb Politzky.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Tony DeMarco.
Yes.
Debbie Tomusko.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
To adopt by emergency, Mary Bellbeer.
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Barb Politzky.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Tony DeMarco.
Yes.
Debbie Tomusko.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Resolution 2016-13 is on first reading, approving the application of the City of Brooklyn to apply for community development block grant funds for the road-on-road reconstruction project. Resolution 2016-4 is on first reading, approving the application of the City of Brooklyn to the Cuyahoga County Supplemental Grant Program for the road-on-road reconstruction project. Ordinance 2016-77 is on first reading to provide for the creation and use of a Brooklyn Community Improvement Corporation Fund, a sub-fund of account 102. Ordinance 2016-78 is on first reading, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Brooklyn Community Investment Corporation and Geist Companies for a development and planning study relating to the city center project in the amount of $50,000. Ordinance 2016-79, authorizing a temporary moratorium not to exceed 120 days on the acceptance or processing of any permits for the activation or installation of any systems, structures, equipment, or devices for the operation of small cells or nodes for communication purposes in the city of Brooklyn, and declaring an emergency.
Introduced by all, suspend the rules.
Second.
To suspend the rules, Mary Bellbeer.
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Barb Politzky.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk. Tony DeMarco.
Yes.
Debbie Tomusko.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
To adopt by emergency, Mary Bellbeer.
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Barb Politzky.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Tony DeMarco.
Yes.
Debbie Tomusko.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Ordinance 2016-80 we'd like to pass by emergency as well this evening, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Civil and Environmental Consultants Incorporated to provide additional services for the sanitary landfill in the amount of $26,000.
Introduced by all, suspend the rules.
Second.
To suspend the rules, Mary Bellbeer.
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Barb Politzky.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Tony DeMarco.
Yes.
Debbie Tomusko.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
To adopt by emergency, Mary Bellbeer.
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Barb Politzky.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Tony DeMarco.
Yes.
Debbie Tomusko.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Ordinance 2016-81, authorizing the C.W. Courtney Company to perform preliminary engineering services related to the road-on-road reconstruction project. I'd like to pass this by emergency as well.
Introduced by all, suspend the rules.
Second.
To suspend the rules, Mary Bellbeer.
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Barb Politzky.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Tony DeMarco.
Yes.
Debbie Tomusko.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
To adopt by emergency, Mary Bellbeer.
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Barb Politzky.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Tony DeMarco.
Yes.
Debbie Tomusko.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
That's all the items we have on our...
Wasn't maybe organized.
Sure.
I just kind of want to reiterate my sentiments from finance about this voice over IP. I know Mr. DeMarco had some questions. This is a large expenditure. Council people should have questions. It's only natural. My issue is that this has been on the agenda for a month and a half. The portion of the support has not changed a bit in the month and a half. When we started off this journey and looking into this, I brought in Joe Magri, who's a resident of the city of Brooklyn, but he's also an IT director for Olmsted Falls School District. he had gone through this process before, and him being an IT expert, he knows some of this technical stuff that I wouldn't know. This is not my background. He gave a presentation, broke down each of the proposals received from every different vendor, broke down the maintenance, broke down the hardware, and recommended, the top 3, explain the differences. So for this to go forward, I'm just going to really need some direction from council on what else they need to know, specifically who they need to know it from, and an email from each one of you explaining what you need to have in order to move forward with this process with the phone system.
Sure, Mayor. Anyone else have anything?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
To adjourn, Mary Bellbeer?
Yes.
Kevin Tansky?
Yes.
Barb Politzky?
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk?
Yes.
Tony DeMarco?
Yes.
Debbie Tosco?
Yes.
Kathy Pucci?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.